Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the MBtv Debates Cunha Foundation series. And this is a very special one, not least because today, the 28th of April, is the anniversary of Cunha Foundation. Cunha Foundation turns 13 today. So I think we should start with saying happy birthday. And it turns out, what a coincidence, that in just a couple of days, Macau business will turn 21. So here we are. As I was saying, this is a special installment. It's the very first one of this year. We've been holding this over the past 5 years in this very meaningful partnership with Cunha Foundation. We've been holding 3 to 5 talks per year. And we do have at least once a year, a talk on gaming. Surely you may understand why. It's the core business of our city, and also is something that reverberates pretty much around the city and the region. And what brings us here today we have, I guess, an interesting and hopefully inspiring evening this time around. Higher stakes, Macau's gaming industry amid rising regional competition. Certainly Macau remains the king of gaming, but the regional landscape is shifting, as we all know, following a 2-year post-pandemic rebound. Gross gaming revenue has plateaued this year, and this takes shape against the background of a pretty challenging geopolitical background, where we also have at the same time intensifying regional competition with new players such as Thailand, Japan, or United Arab Emirates lining up to enter the scene. And of course, we deal with established rivals or competitors, I shall say, in the region, such as Singapore and the Philippines and other Southeast Asian jurisdictions. So what lies ahead, where we stand, and we are fortunate for having a distinguished panel of speakers, industry experts, who will be weighing on how Macau can stay competitive, embrace innovation, secure its place in this evolving landscape. And also, we're also going to learn about what's taking shape around the region, namely in Southeast Asia. And we are joined, as I was saying, by a distinguished panel of speakers. Let me introduce, without further ado, our guest speakers. Ben Lee. He's managing partner of IGamiX, leading Macau-based consultants with extensive gaming experience all over Asia and Australia. We have with us Niall Murray, chairman of Murray International Macau, seasoned consultant, also with extensive experience and expertise in developing, opening, and operating top integrated resorts in the United States, in Macau, and abroad. Also with us, José Isaac Duarte, Economist, university professor, senior analyst at Macau Business, also with extensive experience in our city's economic development trajectory, also based in Macau. All of us, we're based in Macau for over 2 decades. And joining us from the UK, about to be en route to Asia, we have Rosalind Wade, CEO of Winna Media. She was also based in Macau for a number of years, and she's a really experienced and well-connected event manager and marketing professional, namely in relation to gambling in the Asia-Pacific region. And she was also recently involved in holding the first Thai Entertainment Complex Summit in December. Let me start by bringing Rosalind into the conversation. Hopefully, the connection will be safe and sound. Rosalind, you've been keeping a very close eye on what's going on around the region, and namely in Thailand. There's a talk of the town and of the gaming jurisdictions pretty much around the world. And we have an entertainment complex bill, which is making the headlines. We have some developments on a daily basis, but it's a rather also complex, living up to the own name of the bill, development. Could you please share with us your first couple of cents on this discussion? Macau, regional competition, and of course, Thailand.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. And firstly, I must apologize. I'm at the airport, as you can see, and unfortunately the lounge was full, so I'm here. Hope it isn't too disturbing. But on Thailand, yes, for sure, it's all very exciting what's happening. Excuse me. Although, of course, we're in a sort of holding pattern at the moment. The bill has been approved, the draft bill, but it has not been submitted to the House yet, to the Cabinet for discussions. The next time that this might happen would be in potentially June, beginning of June, when Parliament sits again. So possibly the earliest vote would be the 2nd of July. You know, we don't know whether even that's going to happen, because I think the government is very keen on making sure that everybody is on side, including the public and other opposing factions who are not so keen on the bill. I think there's been, well, a lack of communication on the vision of those entertainment complexes and what they hope to achieve. So that's what they've got their work cut out in the next couple of months to get people on side. Assuming that they do present the bill, then it would be 3 readings in the House, and then it would be passed to the Senate for 3 more readings. And then eventually the King. So there's an outside chance it could be passed this year, but either way, it's going to be very exciting seeing what happens, and never a dull moment in this story.
Thank you, Rosalind. We'll get back to you in a while, in a few minutes. Now, Ben, well, actually, both of you have been also keeping a close eye on what's going on, of potentially being developed in Thailand and around the region. And interestingly, Macau's chief executive, Samho Phai, he did mention as early as, well, less than 2 months into the office, as early as in February, he recognized the threat that increased regional competition was posing to Macau's #1 economic driver, of course, the gaming industry. And the same point was reiterated by Samho Phai earlier this month while delivering his maiden policy address. So it seems to be something new in the official political discourse. In Macau, at least that's my impression, in framing the discussion this way. What's your take on this?
You're right, José. I mean, this is the first time a chief executive has actually mentioned the possibility of rising competition in the region. And Thailand is most definitely the elephant in the room. If you look at their tourism industry, right? They have over 700,000 hotel rooms. They generated probably around $47 billion in tourism revenue last year. And they managed to do all this without gaming, right? Imagine if they were able to pull off a Singapore, whereby Singapore used gaming to give a turbocharge to their tourism industry, and it did it successfully. Imagine if Thailand was able to pull the same rabbit out of the hat. They inject, say for argument's sake, anywhere between 3 and 5 casino licenses into their already huge tourism industry. Without a doubt, they would very quickly become the #2 gaming jurisdiction in the world, and they would obviously give Macau a run for its money. Macau depends on China for the majority of its gaming revenue. Thailand, in terms of visitation, last year they attracted about 3 million mainland Chinese, who constitute roughly about 16% of the overall tourism. So Thailand is a well-diversified market. They draw from many, many source countries. So yes, definitely they would be a serious threat to Macau.
Niall, thank you, Ben. Your take on laying the foundations for this discussion of regional competition?
Agree 100% with Rosalind's take and Ben's. They are very far ahead in many ways of where we are with regards to tourism. They're very diversified. The amount of lift and tourism arrivals in Thailand, they're not depending just on, in Macau, we're overly dependent on mainland China. There is a solid request for us to work towards more international markets. They are miles ahead of us on that. And so in order for us to do that, we have to do an awful lot of changes here in Macau. Basically, we need to really focus on airlift. We need to get an airport that can actually make that happen. And we need to have an airline that can make that happen. But if you look at the numbers in Thailand, they're back up to close. They were at 36 million again this year, post-pandemic. So close in number to what we're doing, but from all over the world. And so if one market's down, another one's up, they can benefit from that. So they're not so dependent on single currency changes and fluctuations for differences in their arrivals. With the huge amount of hotel product that's available, that's not comped out, that's actually available at reasonable rates, they can bring people in who can stay at reasonable prices for longer periods of time. So they've extended stay. They've got many, many destinations, from the Chiang Mai jungle experience to the beach resorts. They've got so many options, and they've got a lot of space to work in and develop. All the big international hotel chains are there. Now, as Ben had said, you put that turbocharge of integrated resorts in there, it would be extremely difficult to catch up with them in a couple of years. When they said the original parameters are very fair also and attractive. They're saying that they're going to look at extra large, and small size integrated resort possibilities. So everything from a very large integrated resort with a minimum of 2.5 billion investment down to something around the 300 million mark, which is, if you look at what we did originally with Sands, around 250 to 300 million, and everything in between. That gives a lot of options for different locations. And then you've got all these big hotel chains that may be interested, and huge conglomerates in Thailand who've been percolating on this since 2005, when Shinawatra was in first. All of these plans started back then. There's a number of huge companies with very, very well advanced plans when this law hits to put it in place. It's going to be very, very exciting.
Niall, José, this is a kind of potential wake-up call, and linked with this, haven't we been here before when we had Singapore opening their first integrated resorts with gaming, when we had, of course, now the Philippines developing rapidly? Or is there something interestingly new about what this landscape that is being developed with other players that might look a bit more threatening, so to say, to Macau's hegemony, somehow?
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure I have much to say, because the experts are here out gambling, and gambling activities are here, which is not my case, certainly. I would say that you raise an interesting question with, have we been here before with concerning Singapore? But Singapore is a different kind of beast, if I can say. Thailand is a totally different one, I would say. Even for so simple things as space, diversity of tourism attractions, and it has already a diversified market there. Okay, Macau is still very much a small enclave, catering for mostly customers from the mainland. Okay, and I think that will raise questions again about something that is not new about the Macau tourism landscape, which is, what is this city to offer for anyone who comes and wants to do something else beyond gambling? And we still have a problem there. And the issue of integration of the Greater Bay Area, or in whatever dimension we want to consider it, is still a very much important issue because for someone who comes not from mainland China but comes from other parts of the world, come to Macau, come to Hong Kong, come to Guangdong, is still very much a difficult package to set up. Okay? Macau by itself has no dimension to entertain that number of tourists. Most of the tourists we have nowadays are still those that cross the border in the morning and leave in the afternoon.
Same day.
Still same pattern. Just after COVID, we had a period of transition, let's say, where it appeared that that kind of balance was being changed, but it's not the case anymore. This is not even a kind of tourism that attracts and creates conditions that facilitate others to stay for a longer time. The city is not a pleasant place to travel around in many cases, in many places. So I think the issue of Thailand becoming a competitor will be on a different scale from Singapore. Singapore has its own restrictions, its own limits, its own government wants also to keep things under certain, let's say, limits. I don't think Thailand will have those kind of issues. So I believe that if Thailand goes on, it will be a much more serious and will again force us to rethink what we really want about tourism in Macau.
Can I just add
Sure,
one point?
please.
So,
Always jump in.
you know, we've been looking at this issue from our perspective.
Yeah.
Do we consider Singapore or Thailand as potential competitors to Macau? Don't look at it from our point of view. Look at it from the point of view of the mainland authorities. Last year, at the beginning of last year, I think it was around February, before Chinese visitations to Macau surged 130% year on year for the whole 2024, they issued a warning to their residents going to Singapore.
Yeah.
Don't gamble in the casinos in Singapore because we will watch you. And even if we don't, your fellow citizens will be encouraged to basically dub you in, i.e. report you in to the local embassy. That's number one. So they appear to think that Singapore could be a potential threat to Macau. More importantly, this year,
Yes.
who won Thailand? Oh, don't touch casino. We have it, but please, you shouldn't touch it.
Well, President Xi Jinping, at least allegedly, he raised this issue while
to Thailand.
Talking
So-
with the Prime Minister.
I think that demonstrates the seriousness and potential threat that they view these two markets to Macau.
It's interesting. Niall,
To,
yes,
to
please.
add to that,
Yeah,
an
please.
interesting one, you know, we have some connections with Mongolia with my beautiful wife. The President Xi Jinping met with the president of Mongolia, and they said that if you want to continue to have smooth coal purchasing from China, do not touch a gaming law in your country. And they said, thank you very much, and they dropped the bill. It's something that he's very serious about because they see the exploitation of the Chinese mainland gambler and the propensity to gamble in different countries. And they're saying very strictly, don't do that. Because their intention was to open up some casinos right near the border and to bring Chinese visitors in and set up casinos and take their money. And it was the same with the Pogo incidents in Philippines. They were targeting mainland Chinese. You see a huge change. The government themselves are saying, stop targeting Chinese. You had 1.7 million Chinese visitors to the Philippines pre-pandemic. It's now 330,000. It's a huge difference, and it's not by accident. So if you want to be in the gaming business and you want to be competitive, don't try and build your foundation and your business on the mainland Chinese market. One, it's not going to be available to you. Two, those visas aren't going to be issued to your country. And three, if you're doing it above a leisurely daily spend per day in your casino, you're going to be targeted, and it's going to be stopped. So there's no such thing as premium mass and junket and VIP player as an open game market internationally anymore. If you're an operator and you're after that, you're on the wrong track. You need to refocus where you're going.
Thank you. Now, Rosalind, seen from someone who's been based here and now is traveling around the region, What's your take on this discussion? Here, of course, the view from Macau is that, okay, we may have, if Thailand does move ahead with embracing integrated resource gambling facilities, we will have a very strong competitive, perhaps of a nature that we haven't faced before. But in you coordinated this white paper on what it might lie ahead. What's your comment on this discussion?
Yes, it's a really good question. You know, who is going to be the customer at these resorts? And I think all of the jurisdictions are to some extent nervous, or at least, you know, at least looking at what might happen in Thailand because they're nervous about, you know, the regional competition. I mean, Macau has a very special place. It's a unique market, and it will continue to attract, you know, Chinese gamblers. Whether Thailand can or should is a completely different matter. As Ben said, you know, Xi Jinping warned the Prime Minister earlier this year, or certainly worded it fairly strongly, that he wasn't very keen on, you know, Thailand having casinos. But I think Thailand can attract, as he also said, attract visitors from all over. So from other countries in Southeast Asia, from Europe, from the States, you know, from other places in Asia, Japan, Korea. So for sure, I think people should be wary of trying to go after the Chinese customer. But who will it be? We don't know. That's a good question. We don't even know if it will be Thais. With this current provision, it's way too onerous for most Thais to be able to enter. We don't know whether that will be changed in the future or not. Nobody really talks much about the Indian market, but I think that's a huge market that could be tapped, and probably, you know, I know Macau did try a few years ago, and I had a couple of Indian restaurants and there was a smattering of Indian tourists. But I think Thailand has a much better opportunity to attract Indians, for example, and, you know, yes, much more diversified base that we can draw on. And a lot more other attractions as well. And if you think about Australia, the Chinese used to go for a two-city kind of trip. They might go to Sydney and then Melbourne, or Sydney and the Gold Coast. Whereas Thailand, of course, has multiple attractions and places to go. And I think Chinese tourists and other Asian tourists are looking for different kinds of experiences.
And of course,
and
yeah,
I might have to just say that I'm going to have to pop off now, probably to go and get my flight. But I'll stay online. But I'll
thank you so much. Thank you very much for squeezing in some time and joining us, Rosalind. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, and we do have, of course, the you know, gaming operators here in Macau. Well, there's been news of the concessionaires opening offices in Bangkok, you know, doing some, you know, carrying out some research and studies and preparatory moves to potentially bid for a license. You know, how do you see this taking shape? Of course, presuming that the bill does move forward as was hoped by many later this year.
Ben, okay. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, without a doubt, I believe they all realize the huge potential of the Thai gaming market. And at the very least, if it's not for the huge potential, it's a defensive move, right? To be able to have a footprint there as well, so as not to lose market share to the other operators. In terms of which operators are likely yes. to have the better potential, you know, that's the question I get asked the most by investors. I think probably Marina Bay, Sands, because of their iconic Marina Bay Sands, it's going to be in the running. Whether they can deal with the vagaries of Thai politics, i.e. having to look after various stakeholders, is another thing. But again, President Trump has removed the FCPA, so that I think is a boost.
Which stands for Foreign
Corrupt Practices Act. Exactly. So I think that has removed an obstacle to the American operators. Secondly, I think Melco is probably a good contender in that Melco of all the local operators here in Macau has the biggest footprint from Cyprus to Manila to coming up soon, Sri Lanka, they will have a leg up in that they have also invested heavily, and it's probably the most successful operator of non-gaming, particularly entertainment, here in Macau with the award-winning show. And they are always willing to try new non-gaming amenities that some of the other operators here don't seem to have the guts to try. So I'd like Malco, and then from there on, basically, the field's wide open as to who the other potential operators are. In terms of numbers, I think the minimum number they said is probably about 3, maximum 5, and the way that the chatter is going in Bangkok, I would probably say there'll be 3 licenses in the outlying provinces, being Chonburi, which is close to Pattaya, Phuket, and then Chiang Mai, and then possibly 2 in Bangkok itself.
Niall, and actually Ben and also Rosalind were alluding to the very peculiar ecosystem when it comes to Thailand politics, right? Choppy waters. But anyway, what you've also been taking note of the chatter and what may be taking shape behind the scenes. What's your comment?
A number of very large conglomerates in Thailand have been hoping for and working towards this law for many, many years. Back in 2008, one of the very famous casino architects was flown around Thailand by the then Prime Minister, picking out locations.
Well, actually,
for sites.
On a footnote, sorry to jump in, and of course, I mean, we have talking about the leading politician, and in this case, the patriarch of the Shinawatra family in Thailand is seen, Thaksin, is seen as an essential and a pivotal player here, right? I mean, shaping things in terms of pushing for liberalization.
Absolutely. He tried to push the law through back in 2008, then with his sister, then with the previous prime minister to his daughter, and the daughter's in now. This is not new.
It runs in the family, right? And
it's something that's been and the sites and locations have been discussed for many, many years, and in many, many cases they believe that these properties are already in the possession of these very large families who and conglomerates who then want to work with international players in certain regards, and in other cases they want to do it from scratch by hiring in top executives. So it's really very far down the road. As soon as the law comes in, you'll see very rapid actions. It's incredible. So what some of the proposals for the downtown shipyard area was for a strip of 8 35-hectare integrated resorts to create a strip, and this has been since 2008. Now that hasn't been brought up currently because again the laws are still being worked out. But that was a proposal that was really looked at very favourably back then. You have in the Eastern Economic Corridor, the 3 major airports there are moving together to build infrastructure to have high-speed trains between each of those 3, and the big families behind those airports are in the running to have integrated resorts. And so it's just incredible what's potentially going to happen. And Shinawatra is from Chiang Mai, and he wants to put one in his hometown. The Prime Minister, the King, had the Royal Race Course, was initially thought of as being a public park, is now being considered as being an integrated resort with race course. And you see in the bill, you must have a casino plus 4 of a list of 10 on the menu minimum non-gaming elements. And there's an awful lot of options there. It's the potential is incredible. The other one is that some of the biggest family behind Bumrungrad Hospital, for example, are in the running as a conglomerate to put in an integrated resort with the best in the world medical tourism facilities. There are so many options. It's quite intriguing.
A slogan just popped into my mind: "Play till you die."
plateaued. Yeah. And everybody now is embracing IR model, integrated resorts, and talking about gaming and non-gaming. So it's about, José, Tourism Plus is one of the mantras that's taken shape here in Macau over in recent years. And this brings me actually to something that you did say in one of these roundtables, a rather interesting comment. This was in 2022 when I had a panel on gaming. Back then, we were discussing it was following the new gaming law and also the tender and all the terms. And back then, the discourse was not gaming or casino friendly in terms of the local leaders and also what was coming from the mainland. And you back then, you said gaming is like a very rich uncle that nobody loves too much, but everybody loves the money he brings. I'm full team, José Duarte. No, but this is to bring the leaders in the conversation to the issue of, do you see a different tone and approach compared with 3 years ago? Back then we were in the midst of zero COVID restrictions. It's only been 3 years, but it seems that it's quite different, or not so much. How do you see, I'm talking about the political approach to the industry from the local authorities?
Maybe this is not the only area in local politics where sometimes we may think that we want contradictory things at the same time. What I would say is, from this conversation, of course, Thailand, we still need a law. We all understand that is a potential. Clearly, the government acknowledged there is. But if the idea is to reduce gambling in Macau, then supposedly the customers will go somewhere else. If the government doesn't want them to go somewhere else, then it has to keep Macau. Macau is kind of the natural jurisdiction for the Chinese. If you want to prevent them from going to other jurisdictions, then you have to keep Macau. How does that fit with the idea of the diversification and the reduction of the weight? But I'm probably now threading on very sensitive issues, maybe.
No.
So I would say, again, it's not just the people love the money, it's what are the alternatives? Just think about it. Let's make a mental exercise. Let's say that we want to reduce gambling. We want to make it a much smaller part of Macau economy. And where do the taxes come from? Are you going to charge?
Well, maybe you can, if we introduce DD, then for the taxes.
The taxes. Not the taxis, it's the taxes. When you have a government that is...
That is not a topic.
So this raises interesting questions about how to look, and that's where I will stay. There is a different subject. I don't want to get into too much away from the main topic of that we are dealing with here. But that raises interesting questions about the model for the development and diversification of Macau. So, and it's not always, to me, absolutely clear that it is clear for those who are setting the policies that these dilemmas do exist.
And they do. And actually, if we take note of what was, what was prevailing in the policy address and the chief executive's Q&A session, you mentioned if we look at the revenue structure of current revenue collected by the SAR government. Let's say, for instance, last year, 80% of the total current revenue was hailing from taxes on gaming, on gross gaming revenue, right?
That's the general pattern for many years.
But there's so much one can do when it comes to a structural issue.
How do you sustain the level of, say, social policies you have here if you don't have that cash cow? Sorry.
No, it is. But then this also brings me to another topic that I've got here, which is, have we attained a sort of, this is again the conversation of crystal ball, a sort of ceiling in monthly GGR, gross gaming revenue, because the chief executive himself, he was saying that if monthly gaming revenue is below 15 billion patakas per month, then that's a red flag. Perhaps even if it's below 16, if my maths is not wrong, in terms of what is needed to cover the overall expenditure, at least if we look at the budget and the budget for 2025. Of course, the investment plan execution, there's flexibility, we all know, but so in that respect, if we look at the how much money beyond taxes on gaming can the government collect? Let's say, for instance, I was checking, the maximum was about 25 billion or a bit over 25 billion patakas. So again, back to the discussion of this is a structural situation that is certainly here to stay.
I would also be interested in looking for the figures for the balance of payments that will come for 2024, because there are certainly, in the last few years, some very big amounts in errors and omissions. And that means that even the control that is supposed to be done to Macau is not always working, I would say. So let's see what 2014, where there was a straightening of control, will bring. I would say there is a will for gambling. There is the people will find ways to flow money. I know that those more connected to the markets cannot say that things that maybe I can irresponsibly say,
yeah, please go ahead.
but money finds ways to
yeah.
and if you don't call it gold, you call it silver, you call it copper, you call it something, but the money flows. And the control of the money from China that comes from Macau, if we'll try to find other outlets in Thailand or other places, and we'll try to find always outlets that will reflect the interests of the gamblers in China. How much it is controlled is something that is open, and it's a permanent concern of the central government, for sure.
Of course. So Ben, capital outflows are of paramount importance, and as José was pointing out, this is a key and a major concern that was actually behind, I believe, the moves and the crackdown on junkets, and also now the crackdown, so to say, on money changers.
Oh, absolutely. Look, the mainland authorities have been telling us since 2012 that we need to control our gaming industry. And, whenever we ask them, what do you mean by control? How much? Yeah. Your growth in the gaming industry should not be higher than our GDP growth over mainland China. You are highly dependent on our economy for 80+% of your gaming revenue, and therefore, if your gaming growth exceeds, it's in excess of 40%, 20%, whatever. We had 334% in 2023, and then last year, 2024, we had 24%, which is still much higher than the 5% GDP growth China reported in 23 and 24. So, the message has always been there since 2012. We've not heeded it. So basically, I think the controls came in. They perfected the big data, the AI that basically enabled them to control the players coming in Macau, the people that they red flag as potential players coming in Macau, and change the demographic profile of the players coming in Macau, to the point where we started noticing this as far back as late 2023, and in early 2024, we started predicting that our gaming revenue, gross gaming revenue on a monthly basis, is going to be range bound between 18.5 and 19.5. And apart from 2 months, being May and October, all the other months were more or less within that range.
And once some would speculate that once it went beyond over 20 billion patakas per month, then that was something there was some action taken.
And what it is we've been playing a game of catch up over the last 20 years. Oh, it's got too high, it's too late. Yeah. We can't shut down the industry without jeopardizing it. So I think for once this year is the opportunity to basically tamp things down, cool it down, see how we go for the first half of this year, and hey, it's flattish. First quarter is flattish. Second quarter may be flattish again. It certainly looked like that. Maybe we'll ease up in the second half of this year to let them achieve the 5% year-on-year growth that is in line with China's GDP forecast.
Thank you, Ben. Niall, the new normal, post-pandemic monthly GGR of Macau, is there a sort of ceiling of around 20 billion patakas per month and the kind of bandwidth and a range between, I don't know, 17 billion and 20 billion? Do you see things somehow?
I don't think it's a ceiling. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's an adjustment going on, and the adjustment has been the original wish to diversify beyond a monopoly was based on the model in Vegas.
Yes.
75% non-gaming, 25% gaming. We can't forget that original goal.
And where are we now in that respect? Can we
we're still
15, no?
85% gaming. It's the total opposite.
And 15% non-gaming.
Yeah. 50% non-gaming. Now the issue is they're whole different markets. They have a whole different draw. They have a whole different length of stay, and the facilities in Vegas are totally different to what we have here. So the only thing that the mainland Chinese can't do back in China better is gaming. So they will come here for this. But if you look at hotels, they have far more hotels at much more reasonable prices in mainland China than they have here. They have far more restaurants, they have far more entertainment at prices that they feel is value for money and worth doing. We're not going to extend our length of stay with the current infrastructure that we have here. We have 45,000 rooms, 70% of them are comped, and where are they going to stay? So they've only got 30% available at high end. They've only got 4 and 5 star rooms. We have a wonderful hotel association representative down there, Rutger, doing brilliant things with his hotel and filling them up, but it's at a 4 and 5 star level. We don't have 2, 3 and 4 star offerings. If we were to compete and bring people in to stay more than a day, this 50% daily travel has gone up and up. The numbers are just moving up and up with daytime travel. They're visiting a concert and they're going back over the border because they can't afford to stay here. The average daily rates are just way too high, and those that are available, when you do optimization in your hotel, your ADRs to the free independent traveler go way up. In MICE, they don't want to come here and stay because, again, it's too expensive to come here and do a show. You have 85,000, 89,000 hotel rooms in Hong Kong. We've got 45,000 here. We've got a 1.2 million square foot convention center that is running at very low occupancy. Of course, Marina Bay Sands aren't going out saying, "Oh, we've got very unproductive MICE," but that's the fact. They're not doing comparable shows. If you look at trying to get to what's going on in different markets that are doing 85 or 75% non-gaming, you have to give non-gaming product that's world class that draws people in. And how are you going to bring them in? You need the airports. You need the lift. Changi Airport, Terminal 3 is going to do 110 million visitors a year. We're on an ambitious push here in Macau to bring ours by 2030 to 10 million. It's not going to cut it.
And
you look at the
software
and the people
resources.
to do that.
And the people, of course.
You then look at the Kai Tech Center that just opened up with a 55,000 capacity. We look at our concrete slab that we just opened. It's not comparable. If we really are serious, our outdoor event center with the capacity of 50,000 people with no transport to or from,
yes.
And when it rains, nowhere to take cover. It's just not comparable,
Paris, right?
and it's not realistic. If we want to bring in international tourists, if they don't come from Hong Kong or mainland China, they've got to fly in. They need airplanes. With 26 airplanes in Air Macau versus 220 in Air Asia, I think we've got a bit of a catch up to do there. And so you need the lift. You need to bring them in. You need to do it at reasonable prices. You need to have hotels of a capacity that people can afford and come in and stay more than. Right now, we're at the 1.1 day for those who do stay. and it's less than 50% of those people are coming over the border every day. There's a lot of work to
But
be
actually,
done.
and to share with the new system, the new arrangement which allows those who are Shanghai residents, they can come and cross the border once a week and can stay for a period of 7 days. And you also the multiple entry arrangements for those based in Hangshin. That, and if the trend is that we will have more GBA cities adopting similar arrangement, then same day commuting with that would be increasing, right?
With proximity, the practicality of that doesn't make sense. They'll be over for the day and back. If they're further, it may make sense to try and stay, but the affordability of that stay is what comes into question.
Can I play
please
your role for a minute?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Is oversensitivity one of our biggest issues in that, we are oversensitive to local concerns such as we had a K-pop concert at the Olympic Stadium. By all measures, it was a success.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The SMEs did well. It's borders, the public transport, LRT, buses, and because a few locals said it was a bit noisy, we canceled that. We don't use that anymore. We don't use the race course, which again is bordered by SMEs, restaurants, public transport. And as Niall said, we went and built this concrete slab out in the middle of nowhere. So number one. Number two, the other elephant in the room is the labor issue. Without the software, we can't do anything. But there seems to be an oversensitivity towards local unemployment. By all measures, it is zero virtual structural unemployment. But it keeps being raised as we can't bring in forward from Thailand. We can't have all these people who have the expertise in developing all these non-gaming amenities. No, we can't do them because it will put the locals out of job. So is oversensitivity a barrier for us in achieving diversification?
Thank you, Ben. José. I mean, there's on the couple of issues, the issue, of course, of talent, labor, software, human capital, and also infrastructure. The chief executive yesterday was talking about detailing a bit more on some key infrastructure projects that had been mentioned in the policy address, namely, I'm not here bringing into the conversation the university cluster in Hangshin, but I'm talking about the cultural and tourism hub, which the location hasn't been defined or said, but anyway, that's an investment of 12 billion patakas that has been mentioned by the government and other infrastructure projects. Some would say that yes, but we have to move fast because elsewhere in the region, Niall was talking about the Kaitak project, and also certainly in other GBA cities, things are moving quite swiftly.
With cruises.
Yes.
Cruise ships. Now, again, with the employment, we come back to the same kind of dilemmas that we put ourselves into. We always talk about great investments in infrastructure, but we come back to the main point: with whom? Where is the people?
To build and to operate, right?
Yeah. We can go around town and see how many buildings were made, I would say, almost to pharaonic dimensions, and are basically empty in all sectors of activity, not only in those that relate to shows. You say the concrete slab, but you have the other one, the big dome for the East Asian Games 15 years ago or so. Spaces that were created with huge dimensions, and then they are basically useless. They are or very little use. I don't even want to mention other places that could be probably converted, like the Taipa terminal that was designed for 120,000 people per day or something like that, never reached even 10% of the and so what we are used to is huge investments in infrastructure, but then we don't have the people, we don't have the ideas, we don't have the ability to run them and make them a source of entertainment, a source of attraction for other people. So people come to Macau. Who comes to Macau? Again, what the city can offer, certainly good salaries, but if you you go to big cities, cosmopolitan cities, you have other attractions, other things you can do. You have a nightlife, you have schools for the kids, you have other things. If you want to attract the people that have already some experience, no those that have just come out from the university, nothing against them, people that come from the university. Although one of our legislators a few days ago said we had a problem with structural unemployment among the youth. It's for me a new concept, but we can discuss it one of these days. If the youth is structurally unemployed, then there are many things that we have to discuss about, also the school system and the training system. But we don't have enough people. For those kind of ambition, we don't have enough people. So we have to create space, the possibility that they come and they can, and they find locally the services, support they need, especially if they have some experience, they are relatively young, they will probably have children, they have family. So there's a lot of things that you think about. It's not just attracting big stars, which come and sign a nice paper, but we need people that teach the locals also, and people that come from outside and know how to do things that the locals don't do.
Actually, there was also in the discussion of the policy address the suggestion of inviting, internationally renowned, let's say, designers, architects, like with some to develop to turn these infrastructure projects into something which could be rather, in a way, iconic and also, cutting edge.
Some years ago, a young guy from Macau, that was at the time making a career design and fashion in the United States, in the United Kingdom, sorry, came to Macau and he gave an interview to a Portuguese newspaper. I don't remember exactly which one, so I won't mention it. And someone asked him, "Oh, you are having success abroad, you're doing a career. Will you be willing to come back to Macau?" And his answer should be plastered on the door of a lot of people. Yes, to do what? To do what? So you attract people if you pay them well, certainly. But the essential question is to do what? You can attract lots of talents, pay them a lot of money, but if they don't have the environment where things can function, if they don't have the environment where they can develop ideas, if they don't have the people that can materialize things to make that things happen, okay, you're paying very talents, but nothing will really happen. I believe. I don't know. I don't want to be pessimistic.
And then, go ahead.
I'd like to, because I want to make sure we're linking on what's happened over the last few months, because I feel very optimistic about the new chief executive and conversations we've had with the new Secretary for Finance and the Economy. The conversations that we managed to have with the Macau European Chamber of Commerce and that office have been extremely positive. For the first time in my experience, we've been listened to. We went through a number of key points. We talked about these issues that we're bringing up now, and we've had very positive interaction.
And the chief executive himself quoted and mentioned suggestions that I believe were out of these meetings.
Yes.
Right.
And like in the past, I think it was part of our establishment process or whatever. In the past, our chambers of commerce, i.e. foreign chambers of commerce in Macau, weren't actually recognized as official entities to speak with the government. It was normally the local Macau Chamber of Commerce. So this is a very positive development, and we're very excited about it. We'll see what comes about, but one of the things that we suggested on all these key areas in the 1+4, if we want to be really competitive and make this happen, we have to put together very solid task forces in each of the +4 that are private, public task forces with the world's best of the best in that industry involved in there. So you bring in top experts from around the world. Who are the best at financial services? Let's look at those cities and try and bring in top experts to come in and advise us on that board, and to work together in a public, private capacity with top experts and put in place a best practice strategic plan that will make this happen over a number of years, broken down then into quarterly goals, objectives, and this has been done in other jurisdictions that diversified successfully. And if we bring in best practices, we believe that this will happen. And we feel that we've landed on listening ears, and some of these suggestions are started to take for. We're not taking credit for it. They had a lot of them had the ideas to do a lot of these things before as it was, but we think that it's getting more and more momentum, and I think that's what's going to make the difference. If you bring in an iconic architect, for example, I had this experience in the past where we brought in iconic architects to build some of our integrated resorts. If they were left to their own devices, it could have been a disaster, because they're building iconic buildings to win contests on international design. We're building operations. We don't want to bring in an architect to build an iconic building. We want to build an amazing operation that has some purpose, that's going to bring in your non-gaming revenue and or contribute to the infrastructure. So it's got to have a real purpose, as you were saying, to what are we doing and why, who's it for, what's the reason for this.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Now, I mean, you're correct. You know, various panels, even here, various chambers have brought some of these issues up over and over again. And it wasn't just the currency, but the previous CE too, when he first came in, he was very pro the importation of labor. He said quite explicitly, we need to retain foreign talent to get some of these initiatives going. Is it my imagination, or they start off with a will to do things, but did the executives get ground down by the bureaucracy that's sitting in the civil service here that basically just says, no, that basically grounds to stop all these new ideas, all this initiative to want to get things done? What's the answer to that?
Yes, that's an interesting
Well,
question.
I think the answer is coming together now. With what we've heard is there are a number of task forces and joint collaboration groups that are going to listen to SMEs, medium-sized and large organizations. Bring your issues forward. Let's sit down and work these through together. It seems to be a totally different approach. One thing that was very heartening from the discussions was a mention that I think has never been, I never saw it in Macau before. So how do we benchmark ourselves against the rest of the world? So we're trying to attract international businesses. So there is the World Bank every year does the ease of doing business with report. We're not even on that list. And that was brought up by the Secretary for Finance and said, we're looking at that. We're taking that seriously. We're going to look at the criteria that are needed for Macau to be rated and to get on that list, benchmark ourselves and move up there to be a country that's easier to do business with than it is at present. I think that's an extremely important step forward and something that shows a level of accountability that I hadn't seen before. And I think that's very positive.
Thank you, Niall. And actually here, I would open the floor to the audience, and I can see here some friends that have been to these discussions, have been in dialogue with authorities and putting forth a number of suggestions. So perhaps they would like to join the conversation. In addition, of course, to throwing a couple of questions to the panel. So who would like to go first? Anyone? I'm looking at Rutger. Keith. I'm looking at Keith now. And yes, thank you.
Yeah,
please go ahead.
It's been a very good talk. One thing I've noticed in all this discussion, the word henshin has never been mentioned.
Oh yeah.
So how do you see?
That's a very good point.
How do you see? And Macau is supposed to be joining to henshin. So how do you see this developing in the future? And is it going to help our gaming industry in Macau? Or is it going to be a negative impact?
Thank you, Keith Buckley. That's, of course, something that hasn't been addressed in the panel. Is of paramount importance. Actually, it's been...
if you want, I can risk say something.
Okay. Go ahead, José.
That question was implicit in the issue I raised about what's about the development of Macau and the diversification of Macau. To be very frank, Anqing is again one of those situations where I think we framed ourselves in dilemmas due to various interests that are involved. So I'm not even judging about the merits of any of the interests. But the original idea of Anqing is a very old one. It's an idea that has at least 30 years. And the idea was that after the handover, the mainland China, the central government would end up and Anqing to Macau. That was the original idea. If you look at the development plans for Macau in the 90s, already with the transition under sight, some of those development plans had one scenario which included Anqing as part of Macau. So that was there was an old saying from the first chief executive that was coded again and again that we needed more space and we needed more people until we got to 1 million people. We're still not there. Yes. And that was the threshold from which Macau would become a sustainable city, so to speak, economically. So this idea of Anqing came back in 2003 with the news, the rumors that that was going to happen. I suppose, and now I'm just guessing, that at the time people in Zhuhai and Guangdong realized, whoops, something is going to happen now, so we need to do something. So we have a huge program for development of Anqing, which has been there for 20 years or so. For those who remember the time when Anqing was an empty place, from you crossed the bridge and there was completely empty, there was a pavilion in the middle where they had a huge show of what was the development plan for Anqing. And I think there was a failure. I don't know where and why there was a failure of getting this kind of interests and plans in working together faster. I don't think the question of integration of Anqing in Macau was on the table after the first chief executive. Maybe it was during that, I don't know. But I think that there is probably, that's my guess, some lack of coordination and dialogue between the authorities in Macau and the authorities on the other side. And I don't think that makes it easy to find exactly what is the role of Anqing for the development of Macau, which is a role that is complicated because Anqing is not Macau. So in the one thing that I wrote, if I can quote myself,
yes, you can.
Forgive me
for
that.
Macau business
for Macau business, I said, do whatever you want, but make it work as if Anqing is part of Macau, even if it isn't. But I don't know. I don't have a solution for that.
I'm going to approach the question from a different point of view. The casino operators are economic creatures. They are all listed. Publicly listed companies. They are driven by the share price, which in turn is driven by their profit performances. For them to go into a Hengqin Island, they would need to show that they can make good profit from their investment in Hengqin Island. And up until now, the first 5 years, it was all about using Hengqin as staging island for Macau, and there were promises to invest. And I think the only investment we've seen to date that is solid is what they call a multi-use mixed commercial building by SJM Shuntat / even Galaxy with their much louder golf course, we haven't really seen any movement there. All the movement, all the development we've seen in Hengqin Island, you look at it, there are scores of skyscrapers that are there, beautifully designed, some of them. They're empty, they're ghost buildings. But who build them? Mainland Chinese developers. So they appear to be driven by a different driver than Macau operators. Macau operators, the type of profit driven. The mainland Chinese, they've been given the hint, the nod, a nudge by the authorities. They will go there, right, in order to remain in the good favor of the authorities. So you've got this dichotomy of different business model. And to date, it is still pretty much empty. They're still relying to a great extent on the Macau tycoons to try and populate Hengqin. They're relying on Macau residents to go into Hengqin. scores of mainlanders would love to go into Hengqin now that they've got multiple entry visas to Macau. They've had to reject a lot of applications. So really, we've got a problem in that the Macau system is pretty much hands-off. Please go and do that, but we don't compel them to. Now, you look at the Singapore model. When the 2 hours came in, the authorities had a very different model. They didn't leave them to their own design. They basically said, you promise this, you will do it. If you don't do it, we will penalize you, we will fine you, we will make sure that you stick to your promise. And you look at the 2 IRs, Resorts World. They should have been given a 3-year extension of their license. They were only given 2. And why? They got a fail. You did not achieve the benchmarks that were set for you in drawing international visitors and international tourism. Marina Bay Sands, on the other hand, they got 3 years. They've got the ground to build a new tower, and they were able to expand their gaming. We don't have that sort of
sticks and carrots.
Sticks and carrots.
Yeah.
We don't have that active monitoring here in Macau. All the operators got was a 5-year checklist, which I believe went in multiple pages, got sent to them, they tick it off, and that's it. They all passed, right? And I think we need, or the Macau government need to follow the Singapore model. They need to learn from the Singaporeans.
Thank you, Ben. Niall, I'm sure you want to jump in here, and it's interesting, and also this question that put forth by Kit reminds me of what I read, the policy address for this year, specifically stating that gaming concessionaires would be encouraged or guided or required, I'm not so certain about the wording, to invest in projects, industrial projects. That was the translation. I'm not sure if in Hengqin, in addition to Macau. And how do you see this taking shape? Will it be a business venture, or will it be, to a great extent, as a sort of trade-off for the operation that they have here in Macau?
I like to think back to 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
When I was with Sands, Sheldon Adelson had the vision of us being...
I remember quite well. I was at that press conference.
Developing the quarry and the surrounding areas. And I remember seeing this fantastic plan we had for it, which was multi-day stay in Macau with day trips over to Hengqin. That was the strategic vision, because we wanted to keep them here, keep them gambling. We knew we weren't allowed to do any gambling over there, so we do non-gaming activities. So the plan was for 3 championship golf courses with residential villas up to condominiums, etc., around those, and we would do shotgun starts, as we call them, to be able to get in a small event center the tax benefits of doing a MICE event over there. It was all planned out based on expanding from the MICE center in our major Venetian, right? Now, what you see now, I like that marksmanship phrase where aim big, aim small. China's very good at doing that. They aim big, aim small. They look 30 years, then down to 3, 30 years to 1. And they look at what do we do big term, what do we do short term. What you have in there is the aim big. They said, let's develop it. So they brought in all the state-owned enterprise companies to come in and build those incredible skyscrapers. At that time, those companies were mostly in services industries. So you see all of the major banks that were never designed to do retail banking because there wasn't going to be the foot traffic there. But you have these huge skyscrapers. And what hasn't materialized yet is in the +4, the high finance and the high tech, etc., that we're supposed to accommodate or live in those buildings. So the functionality has changed. The footprint in Macau hasn't expanded to the extent that is needed. You have the infrastructure built that will bring in 60 million people at the ferry terminal over near the airport. That's what it was built for. So the whole idea was bring the infrastructure to the door. Macau was responsible in those years to build up the internal infrastructure to make sure that they could handle 60 million people around the city without causing bottlenecks. That didn't happen. You started off, and we've built 1/5 of the light rail system that was originally planned 25 years ago. So we can't handle that number, but it was all built to bring it to the door. So now what we're doing is we're seeing it aim big, aim small again. They're coming down and saying, let's change what we can in Hengqin to facilitate those numbers of day trippers and make it part of Macau moving forward. So we've got this dangerous situation where those financial buildings are, it was rumored to be 20 to 25,000 of them are now being used as hotel accommodation. If you are a hotel designer, developer, you know that all of these buildings are supposed to be built for a hotel, totally different from an office building or something that's leased.
Yeah.
You're talking about refuge floors, you're talking about escape stairwells, the fire safety systems, et cetera, are not in place in those buildings. Yep. So you're actually retrofitting a very different building to be accommodation for multiple places. And in there, they're not only doing high-end rooms, what they're doing is they're putting in kitchens in these places so that they're more long stay. That increases the fire hazards and difficulties there. So what we're worried about as industrial professionals who are putting together hotels is, are these places safe? What are the rules and regulations that are put in place? Are there compromises being put in place in there? And these are going then in direct competition with the hotels in Macau. So, okay, we got 70% comp, but we still got 30% we need to fill. So they're going to go in direct competition with that 30% occupancy that we want to fill at the best rate. So there's a lot of things happening there that are a little bit dangerous that need to be controlled, regulated, and pulled back in.
Actually, that story, that was our cover story of Macau Business Magazine back in July last year, and repurposing those office buildings into accommodation, hotel accommodation, and now with the increased mobility that we are witnessing across the border, that will increase all these developments certainly. Anyone would like to join in the conversation? I'm certain that we have here. Kelsey will hold. Please go ahead. Yes, thank you. Kelsey.
Obviously, as the American in the room, I'm sorry to everyone.
Oh, we haven't spoken about that elephant in the room,
exactly.
which is...
Exactly.
Yes,
I can be the elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I mean, there was a report out from Fitch which did say that there was the possibility that American operators could have their gaming licenses canceled or otherwise, given the ongoing trade dispute. I personally don't think it's very likely, but I would just love to get your guys' take on the issue. And again, I'm sorry for being American.
Oh, don't need to. Thank you for your question and for joining us, Kelsey.
It's all his fault.
Yeah.
Totally my fault.
Look, I mean, if I could...
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Let's not talk about possibilities or probabilities, but look, there is no sacred cow insofar as China is concerned. They have gone after Boeing, right? Now, if you look at what could possibly emanate from going after Boeing is they're possibly handicapping their own aviation industry. President Xi Jinping flies around a Boeing 747. So, by basically not taking delivery of the Boeings, they're sending a message to President Trump that nothing's off the table. You started this, we will see it through. So to say that they will not touch the U.S. gaming operators in Macau is like saying, well, no, these are sacred cows. They won't touch them. Why would they not touch them? You think about it. What do? They take money that flows from China into Macau, and 50%, assuming the Americans have 50% of the market, it gets sent back out to the U.S. as dividends, as management fees, as branding fees, and guess where a large part of that revenue went to? Electing the current president. So why would the American operators be sacrosanct in this particular war between China and U.S.? I think everything is on the table. Nothing's off the table. So then we can talk about, okay, what are the chances of they actually targeting the U.S. operators. They can't. They'll probably find it hard to cancel the concessions because that's going to go for 10 years. But there is another precedent that we should look at. TikTok. What are the Americans trying to do to TikTok? Force a sale, right, from the Chinese owners to American interests. Why couldn't China do the same thing to the U.S. concessions here and say, we'll give you 1 year, you go sell out to local interests. That way, the industry will not be jeopardized. It will keep operating, but under national security, the
In
foreign
that
interest is
vein, who would be buying though?
local interests.
Who?
Look at anybody from Hong Kong. Or maybe even take over from one of the existing 3 locals. That's also another possibility.
We have some of the, well, this is public, that some of
Thank you,
the
Ben.
American, thank you, because the American operators did have in the past, they were in good terms with the U.S. president, as namely being even donors to his campaign. So some experts were guessing that that would have an influence on a softer approach by the U.S.
The number 1 contributor to Donald Trump's campaign was Sheldon Adelson, over 770 million, and that's been taken up. So himself and Miriam were behind Donald Trump's family at the first inauguration, and Miriam was there, the second one on the opposite side of the tech giants. So the money's there, the influence is there, and therefore the protection demand from the donor will be there. Take care of our interests, don't let us get in trouble. Now, that makes it a very big bargaining chip. And when, if Beijing decides to hit hard and hit back, it could be something to really put on the table and cause a lot of difficulty for Donald Trump if he doesn't. He doesn't have all the cards in this discussion.
Yes.
In this case, Beijing has some cards.
And the
they're very
cards are
powerful
most
cards.
likely made in China, as they say. And José, about the trade war, actually, you may want to comment on, share your 2 cents on this matter, but also I would like to ask you about there's so much talk about the indirect impact of the ongoing trade war on Macau's economy, in the sense as, of course, not in terms of the tariffs on Macau's exports to the U.S., but
Macau is not in the list.
Yes, but in terms of the...
Hong Kong is, Macau is not.
I haven't noticed that either.
No.
But I'm talking about like most of our visitation comes from the mainland, and of course from Guangdong province. Guangdong could potentially is feeling the heat of everything that is going on, and the potential impact on disposable income. That would be my question. Of visitation.
Well, all this discussion is a big question. I have some difficulties in getting into it because I think there is still too much dust in the air, and everybody speculating about lots of things. I think we add the salvo for a very long war that will have several phases, and I think it will be a deep one. But that's subject for another talk.
Yes, of course. That in itself could be a roundtable.
The immediate consequence, as far as I can see it, is obviously whatever is the development, it has already consequences. It created a level of uncertainty, of instability that has already consequences for all the operators. American, non-American, Chinese, everybody is now kind of taking not higher stakes, but trying to keep their stakes under control, I would say. So for the Chinese customer that comes to Macau, I see 2 problems. First is that it's likely that there will be a slowdown in the world economy, and there will be a slowdown in the Chinese economy. That builds up on a situation in China that has been already a complicated one, with the construction bubble coming down, with the reticence, let's say, of the Chinese consumer to consume more, which means that the Chinese economy, contrary to what were the expectations and the purpose of the government, is still heavily dependent on exports. The fight with exports and the tariffs, I think the main point of that fight will be with China. I think that's the main objective, is to change China, and we know China doesn't want to be changed. So I think that's where the things will come to a serious. The other issues I think are a bit more manageable. That one I don't think it's easily manageable. How that will play out for the Chinese consumer, for the Chinese families, and will they become more defensive in their expenditure? Will they even decide that they need to save even more than they do already today? That would be something that could have a serious impact in Macau. But again, I think we are still in the very beginning of a very long war. It's a bit premature to make too many forecasts about that. I wouldn't do that.
But looking at what may happen, let's say, in the second half of this year, there's some expectations that there could be sort of demand-side approach in terms of stimulus, consumption in the mainland, because we can see that in recent years there's been hesitancy and reluctance, I shall say, in embracing a more supply-side approach, and the focus has been on on demand-side approach, and the focus has been on supply-side, so-called
focus has been
reforms.
on exports, basically.
Yeah, exports. But do you see the possibility of a bazooka? Well, we had the one that followed the 2008-2009 financial crisis, back then under Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao. But do you see, not likely to be of the same scale, obviously, but would that be a necessary step?
I don't like bazookas.
Yeah.
I don't like bazookas. I don't really like very much the expression concerning economic matters.
Yeah.
I would say that in the end, we will decide that will be the Chinese families when they assess their future and their needs, if they are spending more. The idea of a more demand-driven economy is not new. It's been in the cards for more than a decade. It has been changing names, but basically the idea is the same, is to move China from an export-driven economy to a more internal demand-driven economy. And that has not been happening.
Yes.
And I'm not sure this is the best time for that. If the government injects lots of money in the economy, well, for a while they will reverse the trends. But if in the end this fight is not resolved favorably, levitation has not been yet invented in economics, and sooner or later you have to come back to land.
Wasn't it stimulus a few years back from COVID? What was the actual result from that? Was it
the current situation?
Yeah.
Then you had the bubble.
Yes.
First the bubble,
Yes.
because the economy was driven by exports, which were good, and then building.
Excessive capacity.
That's why you look at the Hengqin. How many billions are there empty?
So that's why the observers say that it's understandable, the reluctance by the central leadership to embrace such a bazooka approach, right?
Who am I to say?
Anyway, more questions from the ground. We still have a few more minutes before we wrap up. Rutger, please.
Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I like particularly the part on Hengqin. There's 20,000 illegal hotel accommodations, while Macau need more rooms. So selling, eventually we become one destination, two regions, or two regions, one destination. I think that's coming. You see the newspapers every day. There's a ease of the border crossing. So by the end of this year, it will be much easier. You could probably walk without your card, just show your face and you can go across, right? So, but world-class center of leisure and tourism, that is the mission for Macau. And that may then also include Hengqin maybe. But then also look at the 10 years that we are now in this new in this concession arrangement. We have reached 25% is done, and the Lexco elections will be by September. So there's an expectation that the government will not make many decisions until that time. So that means that we only have 7 years left. So where I'm going at now is that the non-gaming regulations, that 100+ billion is supposed to be spent. I don't think we have an overview of how much have been spent so far and who is exactly doing what in terms of the spending. So now we read again that so the Department of Culture is not strong enough to handle those companies. So now it's the secretary personally is going to take charge of the investment of the concessionaires on developing the districts, right? That was also brand new in the news after yesterday. So what's next? There's no overview. I think tourists don't know when is the next concert, what's the next sport event. There's not a combined calendar. And we are working on a world-class tourism center without a proper calendar for all of this. And in the non-gaming, it's not just the tourist attractions, it's also the 1+4. So, for example, the medical tourism. I think Niall had on another forum, he really exactly what the point is. There are no regulations, there's just some shouting about medical tourism. Let's do it. But where are the rules? Where's the law? How can we do it? There's nothing like that. And the same for big finance and high tech. So my question to the panel, I'm not sure who. So what's up with the non-gaming activities by the concessionaires? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rutger. I would say that's the 100+ billion pataka question, right? So who wants to take it? I mean, I would like to hear from 3 of you. I think this is,
I feel I'm repeating this every time I bring it up, but I think that we've got a situation where I use the analogy 25,000 people are standing at the start line of a marathon and the gun goes off and they don't have a route and a finishing line, so they're going in 25,000 different directions. That's our diversification strategy in Macau at the moment.
That's creative.
There was a 176-page document was given out by the previous administration, said diversify. And what's the goal? And they had a percentage there, and it said refer to footnote, blah, blah, blah. So you had to go to page 176 to actually see the percentage, and then it said make it better than the 2019. Look, you're even hiding the goal. It's vague.
The one
you're talking about
blueprint
smart
that was
goals,
out in November 2023.
Yeah. Too vague. It was just hogwash. So a lot of talk and no specifics and no really determined actions that were needed and who's going to do it. And if you see it, it was all regulated to certain departments. I think 70% of it was going to certain secretaries, the secretary for certain responsibilities, right? But the issue is too vague. It was all left with government, and then what they didn't want to do was delegate it to the IRs. Why does a casino operator have the responsibility to refurbish an urban development? It's not their business. They're not civil engineers. They're not social architects. They don't know that business. That's not what they do. So why delegate it to them? Also, why should they be responsible for high tech and high finance? It's not their industry. So I think that what really needs to be looked at again, pull that 176 pages back. Beautiful intentions in there. Now, let's put them with the right experts to make these things happen. Otherwise, you're going to have your marathon, 25,000 people going in 25,000 different directions. Now, I've seen now with the new chief executive's address, a whole different set of very strict statements. We're going to control this. We're going to work with the IRs. We're going to ask them, where are you now? Where do we need to go? Let's put a plan in place. And we're going to have a lot more regulation and oversight of this. But I do think it shouldn't be just the government as an examiner of their progress. It should be also bringing in best practice individuals to work with this as a group, as a professional group. I hate to sort of say, oh, look what Singapore does, and we're not as good. That's not the point I'm making. But what they have done over there is when they wanted to turn something around, they go around the world, look at best practices, and adopt to their situation best practices, put them in place, and put a solid plan in place to make this happen with solid and consistent check marks. And where are we? Are we doing well? Adjust if we're not, to get back on track. That's where I think we're starting to go, and I'm very positive that it's given all the indications that where this new chief executive and the secretaries are going, and I hope that's what's going to happen. If so, we'll be successful.
Niall, as Rutger was referring to, Secretary for Economy and Finance, he announced that he would be taking over, and departments under him would be handling and trying to attempting to bring things back on track, so to say, in terms of the milestones. Ben, you've also mentioned this. I remember, I believe it was at an FMCC breakfast briefing that was about a year ago, was it, or less than a year ago, that you did take the pulse of where we were. But now we're talking here. We are already about, let's say 25% into the 10-year period, and then the clock is ticking, right?
Yes, correct. So, I did list out all the promises. Just to name a few, Winna, for instance, they promised similar to the Marina Bay Sands, a Lotus Arts and Cultural Museum. They were going to build a new hotel wing as well. Sands was going to build the Garden Conservatory, which would have been a fairly easy job to do. And then they also promised to build a new hotel on the back of the Four Seasons. And you list them all out. We haven't really seen any progress in terms of the hard investment, the capex, the building, the structures, that you think 25% of a 10-year period were already used up. And you're not going to build in the last quarter because you won't get any time to recover your investment. So why haven't they done anything? So, and there seems to be an absolute silence. From the operators, I haven't got the sense that they've actually planned to do anything in terms of the hard capex. From the casino, I haven't heard from them. Sorry, from the government's point of view, I've heard some operators concerned that every time we throw a new idea at them, it comes back with either rejection or 20 other scenarios. So there is a lack of progress between the two sides, and I don't think we're going to see anything for another 2.5 years, and we'll be halfway down the track before we actually see anything start to move.
Thank you, Ben. José, on the non-gaming pledges and the timeline for implementing and the clock.
I think the timing issue is an essential one. Which after a while, how does it make sense? How people will deal with it? The vagueness has been there since the beginning. In a way, we can say we were creative. I don't know of other experience in the world where a casino concessionary is given a chunk of traditional land in town and say, develop it. So maybe we can even study the effects and the results of that. Maybe you can learn something from that. The vagueness has been inbuilt from the beginning in everything. So we might try to gauge if there is some method in the vagueness, or is just a way of delaying things and pushing things forward because we don't know exactly what to do. I'm quite afraid that some of the solution will always be coming back, don't quote me to say this, on creative accounting.
Yes. To your point, I think some of the operators are now trying to claim that the operating expenses of the overseas marketing officers should be capex for non-gaming. So there you go.
Well, also development of hotel rooms is not included in this spend, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you want more hotel rooms, you got to include it in that multi-billion-dollar spend. It's not being recognized. That's why the IRs are not moving forward building these hotel rooms, which is absolutely essential. And what we're seeing is a self-serving redevelopment of properties. So what you're seeing is we've actually got a reduction of 4,000 rooms over the last couple of years because Parisian has doubled the size of their rooms because they weren't good enough for the high-end players. And we've taken Holiday Inn out of the market totally and turned it into a higher-end David Beckham designed Londoner tower. And so these are beautiful projects, beautiful rooms, but they're going in reverse of market demand, which is more rooms. We've actually gone backwards.
But then wouldn't that be the case that someone could make the case that, you know, when the big six were granted the 10-year concessions, there should have been extra land allocated for this kind of developments, namely to build more rooms and to build not only to redevelop. Of course, Galaxy is an exception, certainly, but the other 5 are in that kind of situation. And would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and I would turn around and say, what about plots 7 and 8 that were taken back? What about these other plots that were taken back from the developers years ago? And now it becomes a political hot potato that nobody wants to touch. Go back and re-look at these sites on Kotai and allow them to develop hotel rooms and other amenities and put a ratio in there. For X amount of rooms, you must do X amount of other non-gaming. But why are you putting a garden in the middle of a Kotai strip? Really, are you going to get a return on that? It'll look beautiful, great. You know, people popping up and down and having picnics in it. But are you going to make any money out of that? And is that going to move the pendulum at all with the revenues from your non-gaming side? Take a brave step, re-look at the land, reallocate it, readjust it with the IRs, allow them to do something meaningful and to put in some solid stuff there. Again, look at our beautiful concrete slab. Could we really do a Kitech there and play it out over 18 months? You could get a fairly nice structure in place. Or look at potentially, is there a place in town that already has stands, already has lighting and floodlighting, has logistics to bring it, like, for example, the Macau race course. Why wasn't that the site of the new stadium? And it could start off with a potentially starting grandstands that could have been built around. Like, re-look at it, put politics aside, and really see what's best and what's needed for the whole of the SAR.
That is a concrete question, definitely. Talking about concrete, we could also be talking about concrete lotus,
but
which is
again, this
is
not to criticize the current regime. This happened in the past, and we are working with legacy issues. And I believe that the new chief executive, because he's a legal eagle, will be able to look at these laws and say, do they make sense, and do we need to make a change, and can we move quickly? And I think it can be done.
But the other point is, just to close it off, is how much would you hold the concessionaires accountable for in terms of this were what they promised in getting the new concession? What have they achieved in that time span?
But to add that, what have they been asked to do? They are integrated resort developers who gaming and non-gaming within their resorts. Don't give them the responsibility to revise the whole country.
Oh, no,
that's not their job. They're
Small
not
potato.
infrastructural experts. They're not high-tech experts. They're not medical tourism experts. That's not their job. You can't delegate diversification of an economy to the leading industry. If you look at Abu Dhabi, you look at Riyadh, you look at all the successful 30-year diversification strategies. When you look back, they brought in experts from around the world. They did very strict criteria to do an RFP for companies to help them come in and develop a 30-year development strategy. After a long, tedious process, they picked the right people, put a 30-year process in place with constant checks and balances along the way, and they have started to diversify beyond the reliance on oil. And this has happened not in one country, it's happened in dozens of countries around the world. Macau could look at those examples and follow those best practices and put that in place in this strategic, multi-purpose team that I believe I keep crying out for to make this happen.
And those redevelopment of the tourism sites a distraction? Because they want the core promises of the 6 operators. The 6 operators have their own list of promises, hardware, capex that they were going to invest. Now we've got this focus on the redevelopment. It's, to me, that's a distraction. That's not what they promised. So where's the holding them accountable for their promises?
Mm-hmm. So, for example, one other point, you want to diversify the economy, you want to bring in more international. So where's the government's role in making that international lift occur? If you look at an example in the Philippines, the new airport coming along is a private-public commitment. Mm-hmm. And they're going to bring up 35 million within the first phase, up to 100 million by the completion of it. And you're talking about San Miguel and the government coming together to develop this new international airport. Okay, let's do the same here. If you really are serious about bringing in international, and then let go of CAM's stranglehold on the country with regards to how the airport's developed, and Air Macau's stranglehold, and sort of say, because we want to protect CAM, we want to protect Air Macau, you're not going to have an international, proper, low-cost airline bringing in multi-millions of players. Okay, take the brave step, get to that next stage, and if you're serious about international, support the IRs in their goal to bring in international players by allowing them to bring in those people to the country.
Thank you. We have time for one last question from the audience before we move on to the concluding remarks. Anyone would like to say yes, please? Go ahead.
Please wait, please wait.
Fantastic discussion, by the way, really interesting. Just pulling it back to the initial premise here, which is what Macau needs to be doing to make sure that it is truly competitive and superior as a location to attract international travelers versus Thailand versus Singapore. We've talked a lot about the issues and the challenges and the weaknesses. The key thing in all these transformation processes is identifying the real big opportunity, right? What can we own which other locations do not own, and how do we get there? So my question really to the panel is, back to the first step. So assume Thailand's coming up next year, right? Mm-hmm. What would be the real opportunity to set us apart versus a Thailand and a Singapore over the next 5-10 years? And if you were running this place, each of you, what would you do to seize that opportunity?
Thank you very much, and that is that's a perfect question for a wrap up of our discussion. You know, bringing us back to the initial question that we have here. So thank you very much, José. The question and a concluding remark. If you were chief executive or if you were in charge for a day, no, well, a day wouldn't be enough.
First, I'm glad I'm not.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about it. I would say concerning this issue is a very sensitive topic, I would say. We keep discussing about the diversification of Macau. I understand the topic less and less. Because if the idea is to integrate the Greater Bay Area, which is a huge area with population, with all kinds of industries, why is it a problem that Macau has a specialty in entertainment and gambling within the framework of the... But that is a very politically sensitive discussion. So I don't have a solution for you. I have a question. An additional question is, why keep we fighting this issue? Because basically what we know to do is gambling, okay? All the other things that we want to do take a long time, take lots of people that we don't have, take environment, take a framework, a legal framework, all things that we don't do. So, and we are trying to do them in a very special way on the side, in Anqing. Okay, we are coming back to Anqing. So I would rethink the development of Macau in the frame of the discussion of the Greater Bay Area. And if that is the case, I don't see what is the problem that we are the neighborhood in the Greater Bay Area, which is specialized in entertainment and gambling.
And if I may jump in here, I remember one article that you were. There was a question that I think was at the end of the article, of the op-ed, which was along the following lines: all these key areas for diversification are apparently being launched in the coming years to be developed in Hangzhou. So will we be in a situation where we will end up being even more specialized, perhaps with a level of vertical diversification, gaming, tourism plus entertainment? But is that also what you're suggesting in terms of if there's integration when we have...
Again, we have a distraction on those other things. If we create the right framework and we allow people who have the competence to come, and we have an environment, a financial environment that is welcoming, that is functioning, people will come and will diversify the economy. We don't need to keep forever telling them they should do this, you should do that. But our main competence is, whether we like it or not, is gambling, and it's from gambling that we should diversify in to make it a different brand of tourism, not just gambling. But that's what we know how to do. That's where we have the people to come, that we know how to bring people. So we are, I would say, always fighting for something that is, again, always vague. Because I would challenge anyone to tell me what does it mean, the world center for leisure and tourism. What does it mean? Where is it written anywhere? What are the criteria that allow us someday to say, here it is, Macau is a world center for leisure and tourism? Everything is vague, which has the positive side that everything can always be achievable.
Yes. So Uncle Gaming or Uncle Casino, that uncle, we should...
I think we should learn how to live with him.
Yes. Thank you, José. Living with Uncle Gaming, with Uncle
And
Casino.
I have nothing with gambling. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a gambler. I have no interest in gambling. It's not a customer.
So Ben, going back to the question, if you want to also add something.
Your question got me thinking.
Yeah.
So my company's been involved in several new projects in Vietnam, whereby they flipped it. This particular developer used to be number 8 in terms of a top 10 real estate developer in Vietnam. They're now number 1. They have zero gaming. What they've done, or what they have been doing over the last 10 years since we started working with them, was they reclaimed a lot of land, they turned the land into tourism destinations. They built theme parks, water parks, cable cars, absolute tourism destination that attract hundreds of thousands of people without gambling. And recently we visited their latest destination down south, where they built this huge town. Couple of thousand keys already existing right now, soon to develop more. They got 2 huge water amphitheaters, fireworks, laser show by an Australian company, live entertainment, 365 days a year. And the other part of the lagoon was another water laser show by a French company, again 365 days a year. Now they were able to build that without any gaming. Now that's one part. On a neighboring island, they're building a mini Santorini with 20,000 keys, 20,000 rooms, again without gaming. The gaming may come in later as a reward from the government. So I think that we have a first world problem. We've got too fat, too quickly on the back of gaming. We don't want to do anything else because it's never going to make as much money as gaming. So we refuse to invest in theme parks. We don't want to touch this one. I mean, look at Hengqin. You got Cham Lung. That's a world attraction there in terms of the amount of visitors they attract and the amount of revenue they attract. Yet our gaming tycoons will not touch anything like that. Why? Because it doesn't make as much money for them as gaming does. So we have a first world problem.
And some people would say that the local economic structure and ecosystem is highly rent-seeking.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
No. I think that's probably not a judgmental take, but also a matter of fact. Would I be right? No problem. No, Niall, your last couple of cents on all this discussion, the question, and also your concluding remarks.
So if I had the great fortune of being the chief executive, I'd sit down and look at this the way I'm a strategic development guy. So what we would want to do is get a good solid strategy model, put it in place, and look at all of the elements of that. From that, look at each of those 1+4 separately. Look at the best practices around the world, bring in the right people, put together a very, very dynamic, top expert panel on this thing. That's an action team and a real, not a committee that sits there and debates about it forever. It's an action-oriented group who are going to say, here's what we're going to do, here's step one. We're going to go around the world and see who's best at this. We've been given a gift by Beijing, and they've told us, you form this the way you think it should be. So, for example, you look at a country like Ireland. We were an outlier. We had no industry. We went from agriculture, trade to services. We do 70% of all mutual funds around the world are done through Ireland, the International Financial Services Centre. Where do we come up with that? Then we do over 80% of all aircraft leasing around the world is done through Ireland. That's a service industry that we managed to grab and do better than everybody else. We started with tax holidays to bring in the companies where you didn't pay tax for 5 years, and then after that it was 10% corporate tax. That was irresistible for that industry, and the laws we put in place were so attractive that you would be an idiot in that industry not to look at Ireland and use it as a place to go. We did it right here. We made it so attractive in the gaming industry that all the big players around the world raced to Macau and fought to get a license. Singapore did the same thing. All of them are fighting to get in there because they made it attractive. Even at the 40% tax, it was still so attractive with this market that everyone wanted to be here. Let's do the same thing for the +4, and we have a chance of being world leaders in the other 4 gifts we're getting from Beijing. They're giving us a chance to be the foothold for Chinese companies to go international and international companies come into China in a safer environment. The laws are being changed now between Hengqin and here that will allow this and facilitate this. But we come from the vagueness, bring it back to something clear in the next year or two, and then go for it, hell for leather.
Thank you very much. And with this, I would be wrapping up this exciting and really fruitful discussion and conversation. Thank you very, very much for joining us, our esteemed panel speakers, José, Duarte, Ben Lee, Niall, Murray, Rosalind, Wade, and all of you who joined us here at Cunha Foundation and via our Facebook live streaming. And again, I would like to thank Cunha Foundation. This is a very special day. Cunha Foundation turns 13. It seems that it was just yesterday, and time does fly, and we really feel at home here. So thank you very much, Dr. Rui Cunha, Rui Pedro Cunha, and the whole team that has been assisting us. And thank you all. We'll be back soon in a couple of months or even weeks with another installment of the MBtv Debates series. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.